Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Hello and welcome to the CatchMark SportsNet Playoff Football Podcast Special. I'm your host, Zach Zweigle, and I'm joined across from me by a colleague, Mr. Scott DeCamp, and behind the desk in the corner back there, our leader, Brent Raeth. In the background, and the guy producing this whole show is Billy D. Mann.
Yes, he does have his Miami Dolphins hat on.
Yes,
so
yes,
for all those that you know Billy, if you don't, look for Miami Dolphins.
Put the shorts away, though, didn't you?
Yesterday was officially the last day for shorts.
I don't believe that.
It's
But
getting a little cold for shorts, for sure.
I do not believe that.
There's frost on your car. You probably should transition to the old jeans there, Billy. Today we're going to be talking about some of the playoff matchups in the Muskegon area moving into the state tournament. We will start with Division II and end with Division VIII. Not that we're avoiding discussing Division I, the Division I bracket, but in general, we don't have any Muskegon area teams that are that are in that bracket. So we're going to start with some Division II action. Definitely one of the area leaders in my opinion. Scott, want to take it from there?
Yeah, you got Mona Shores, two-time defending state champ, taking on recent nemesis, and maybe it's not right to call them a nemesis, but Forest Hill Central, that they've developed a nice rivalry between those teams. I covered last year's game. It was a second round, and Shores was lucky really to come out with that win. I mean, they played pretty well, but when I say lucky, I mean it came down to a final play where Forest Hill Central was tackled at the 1. And Shores won by 3 points. And the clock, there was maybe a couple seconds left on the clock, and the clock just ran out. And everyone's like, on the Forest Hill Central side, they're like, what's going on? We get one more play, and Mona Shores runs out on the field. Game over, it's done. And it was just one of those deals that, man, if you're on one side, you're like, man, we kind of got a little bit screwed over on this. And the other side's like, nope, we go, game over, let's go. So, this, and they've had, going back to, there was a little bit of an incident a few years back where, one side called maybe a dirty hit of a player that got hurt at the end of a play where a kid got his leg got hit.
What did you think, Scott? Did you think it was a dirty hit?
That one was I didn't see it live. I covered that game. I covered it.
Yeah.
I didn't see it live covering that one. That was back in my covering it from the press box days. I covered it from the sideline now. I didn't see the play live. I saw the replay of it, and that was actually circulating out there. And I thought it was definitely after the whistle, and the kid looked like he dove at the kid's knee. It was a Forest Hill Central kid dove at the Mona Shores kid's knee. Mona Shores kid ended up having knee surgery after that.
Oof.
It didn't look good. At the very least, it just looked bad. But I can't say if it was intentional or not, but it just didn't look good.
Makes sense.
Who you got in this one then?
Man, my instinct says Shores, but I think they could win this district, and I think they could lose right away. That's how tough that district is. Because they've got Caledonia in that one as well, which Caledonia was the runner-up in the OK Red. They gave Rockford all it wanted. Yep. This is a very tough district.
Yeah. I don't know, so I'm going to apologize in advance. I got my computer up. I don't know if Max Preps has the rankings right. So don't anybody crucify me online if I give the wrong ranking. But Max Preps has Forest Hills at number 4 in Division II and number 29 in the state, and Shores is three back in the state and 2 back in the division. I don't know. I like Shores in this, and maybe call me a homer, call me what you want. I feel like they want some retribution after kind of getting it put to them by Muskegon at home. But an interesting game for sure.
I think defense. To me, in my mind, I think Mona Shores has all the goods to make another run, but they got to shore up that defense. No pun intended.
Yeah.
They got to really get that, because that's really what's kind of let them down in some ways. In the Muskegon game, it obviously did. They had trouble tackling in space, and Muskegon just thrived off big plays in that game, as we all saw. And I think if they can get that side of the ball figured out and get that things tightened up, then they got a shot to make another deep run.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Who has Forest Hill Central's lost to? They only have one loss in the season.
I got schedule. They lost to Grand Blanc in a non-league game, 38-34.
And that came right down to the end.
Right.
Grand Blanc, I don't know if they've lost. Maybe they're a Division One team.
I think they're undefeated in Division
Yeah,
One.
I'll look right
them in
now.
Rockford.
Yeah.
Yeah, Grand Blanc's number 4 in Division 1, number 11 in the country, and they have not been beaten.
Yeah,
They're 9-0, 5-0. So
I mean, I think it's going to be
pretty
a
good
heck of a
loss if
game.
there is such a thing, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to
Yeah.
be one heck of a game. Scott, who did you say you had on the edge there? in
Who
that
do,
game?
who do I give the edge? I give the edge to Shores. I mean, those guys have been there and done that. They got a lot of guys back from last year. So, but I mean, as we've seen in this history, the short history of this rivalry, I mean, it's a coin flip type game, and I see that way again. But I mean, I think you got to kind of, like Cal Van Single, our friend on the West Michigan First and 10 show, always says, it's kind of hard to really pick against the defending state champ until they actually give up that championship and don't have it anymore.
That's
So
true.
I guess I'm going to side with that right now.
Interesting, Brent.
Yeah, I got Shores.
Yeah,
I think Shores all the way.
And I'm gonna follow suit with the old
Bunch of
Shores.
homers.
Yeah,
Bunch
yeah,
of
we really
homers.
are. I do think it's gonna be one heck of a game. I honestly think that the Grand Blanc matchup says a lot. You know.
Yeah, it does.
When you're a Division I powerhouse like that, you know, it could definitely go either way.
Yep, for sure.
Moving on to Division III, another Muskegon-area powerhouse. We have Muskegon against Lowell. Lowell's actually going to take the trip to Muskegon. This game's going to be on a Saturday. Lowell's 4-5, not the Lowell that we've seen, you know, in history. Muskegon's kind of taken over that matchup, if you will. What are your thoughts on that game, Scott?
Well, Lowell opened up with Mona Shores in the Pink Arrow game at Lowell, and Shores was all over them. It was like a 50-some to whatever, 57-14 or something like that, if my memory recalls properly. And it was, I think Lowell scored on a couple kickoff returns. So that it's not the Lowell of old, the Lowell that Muskegon used to face, and that became a really bitter rivalry with when Noel Dean was at Lowell and then Shane Fairfield, who was still at Muskegon. They've just had some absolute battles. I mean, there's been games where back in like the Keith Nickel day when he was the quarterback over at Lowell, where they'd bring in 10 to 12,000 fans over at Lowell for a game. Ronald Johnson, Rojo, playing for Muskegon. Those are just some electric atmospheres. But I mean, this is not the same matchup as those other ones. I mean, I like Muskegon to roll in this one. They're at home. They're on the fast track of their turf. I just think this is a bad matchup for Lowell.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
I'm not betting against Muskegon.
Yeah.
Watching them against Shores, like they just want it. I don't think it's the most talented Muskegon team I've seen, but they definitely want it. And I'm not picking against Muskegon the whole bracket. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think they're great again. I'm going down the homer route, but they just look gritty and tough against Shores, and I just don't. I think that means a lot, especially when it comes to playoff time, right? Like, how bad do you want it? Going back to that Shores game, that's one thing I wonder about Mona Shores. Like, Muskegon definitely wanted it worse when they played at Shores. So, I go Big Reds.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
What about you, Zach?
I hate to follow suit again.
This is going to be a boring podcast.
It is going to be a boring one. On this
Wait till we get to Whitehall, then we'll have it.
Right, we'll break up the samesies there.
Did you guys notice I'm wearing my blue today too? So I got it on camera.
I can't say
I'm wearing my what Billy calls this my Dr. Evil.
Dr. Evil's coat, yeah.
You're
He does call you Dr. Evil too.
So,
You're the
but
Diet
no,
Coke of
he mentioned
Peterborough.
mentioned brackets. I just got to throw this out, and it's out there on our website right now. But I just got to give a huge shout out to Zach for producing all those brackets. They look outstanding. We're going to be updating those throughout the playoffs. Well, Zach's going to be updating them, but he does so much behind the scenes work for us that I just want to give him a shout out for that, and he deserves credit for that.
Yeah, I honestly think that the brackets are a really cool way, to track
Yeah,
not only the teams that you're specifically watching, but just kind of everybody, right? There's so many teams that are playing at the same time and at different times, over the weekend, and it's kind of cool to go on and be able to, track to see where people are.
It's like March Madness with football, right?
Right.
It kind of is. That's the coolest thing.
It really is. But anyway, back to the Muskegon thing. I definitely have Muskegon. I thought it was interesting that you talked about how you're going to have a hard time picking against them. The only game that I saw of Muskegon's this year was at Shores, and it just seems like they kick it up an extra notch.
They do. That's what I mean.
They have another gear that they step into, punch into, and it's just. I have a hard time betting against them.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what I was talking about too, Zach. Because it's like they just want it, you know. And I mean, if you've ever talked to Shane, you know that's like it makes total sense.
Yeah,
right?
it's full
like,
speed all the time. And you talk about speed too. I mean, we
Yeah.
saw it. But
Yeah.
Jacob
Sure
Price, Destin Piggy, which is there a better high school football name than Destin Piggy?
No, there's
Yeah.
I mean,
Those
he's
kids
on
are
the
young,
all-name
too,
team.
right?
Yeah, they're both sophomores.
They're both sophomores.
Well, Tug Nichols is a pretty good
good.
football name.
That's
too,
pretty
so,
good.
you know,
That's
like,
a pretty good football name too.
Big time credit to Tug. Not sure we can compare. With
he doesn't.
guys.
No, yeah, no offense, Tug, but yeah, that's.
Let's line them up in a race against them. Not now.
Let's not. Let's not.
You just had to go there, didn't you?
No, you know.
Moving on to Division 4, we have one of our White Lake area teams, Whitehall, taking on Sparta at Sparta on Friday night. And I'm just going to kind of list the games first, and then we'll kind of go in and talk about them individually.
All right.
Another Division 4 matchup is going to be Fruitport at Cadillac. That's also going to be on Friday. And then the final Division 4 game is Spring Lake at Grand Rapids Christian. And that's also going to be on Friday. Starting off with Whitehall. Whitehall visiting Sparta. They're both 7-2. Whitehall's coming off of a loss last week to Reed City, which kind of surprised, I think, most of us. I would say that at least in our picks, the picks that we post, majority of the people picked Whitehall.
Yeah.
It kind of surprised me. I'm going to be honest with you. Well, what do you think about that matchup, you're heading into Friday?
Well, let me kick that back to you first, if you don't mind, because you
Sure.
were at that
I
game.
was,
You were
yeah.
at the Whitehall Reed City game. I mean, what was the vibe like? What was it? Was it just one of those feelings where you could just tell that maybe they just didn't have it, or would you credit Reed City, or what do you think?
Yeah. So I think in those types of situations, it's a little bit of everything, right? Like it's never one issue or one thing that comes up that predominantly, decides the game, if you will. I think that it's really hard to avoid the fact that they had a big win over Montague the previous week.
Post-bell letdown.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can say what you want, and I think that, I don't think that it was the sole reason why they ended up taking the loss, but I think that it's it's a little bit of a small factor
For sure.
in the outcome, if you will. So I mean that had a little bit to do with it. The weather was extremely poor in regard to the rain. Whitehall runs an offense where they utilize a lot of receivers and they spread the guys out a little bit. I don't think that they had the opportunity to do that as much as they would have liked. Now, I did talk to Tony Sigmund, Whitehall's coach, after the game, and he was very quick to kind of shoot down that excuse, which any
He
coach
should, yeah.
should.
No, it's good.
But I do think that it affect their gameplay a little bit. And the last thing was, I think that in general, myself and probably Whitehall underestimated Reed City a little bit.
Yeah.
They ran the straight tee, just a wing tee variation and a little bit of the wing tee, a little bit of the straight, and they were dominant. Their line was good. Their guys hit the ball well. They moved the ball,
Yeah.
a few yards at a time. They had a couple breakout plays. They were just solid. It's hard to discredit a team like that, in my opinion.
Reed City's lone loss was to Cadillac,
Yeah.
18-14.
Yeah,
Cadillac's
it
a
was
good
close.
team.
Yeah,
So-
honestly, it was a close game too.
Yeah.
So I think that says a lot about Reed City specifically. I don't necessarily think that I'm losing my faith in Whitehall, potentially taking a victory this week, but it definitely opened my eyes to where Reed City stands.
Well, going into this week, Whitehall Sparta, I think it's a fascinating matchup. I mean, you interviewed Kyle Stratton the other day at the playoff show that they had, and he said he brought it up himself. He made a good point. They kind of reset and got back on track after losing to Oak Ridge and got on a roll. Are they going to be able to do it again? Because
Right.
they're coming off a loss again. How are they going to respond? And
I'm curious about that, Zach.
Yeah.
Who did you take? Who do you take, Sparta or Whitehall? You didn't say.
Yeah. So I am going to take Whitehall, and there's a little
All right.
homer in this for sure. I can't lie.
That's all right.
But I do think that they have the edge. Sparta had a couple really close games, and we'll kind of get to them
Yeah.
as we go. But Sparta had a close couple games against teams that I don't think are
Quality.
are top tier, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's a big rationale behind my decision.
Yeah. Sorry, Scott. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
Yeah. I just.
That's, I think I'm having a tough time picking this one. I'll be
Yeah, me
honest.
too.
Yeah.
You could easily see it going either way. There's a little bit of a history lesson here too. Back in 2014, so Sigmund had just kind of taken over around that time, and they played, or the coach then they played Comstock Park and won just a great game. 41-36 was just a wild game, wild playoff game against a really good Comstock Park team. That Comstock Park team was coached by Mark Chapman, who's now the Sparta coach. So they've seen each other before. I think Tony has a lot of respect for him, but he's going over to Sparta, which has one of the nicest facilities around, like the AstroTurf.
Yeah.
Just beautiful, beautiful facility over there. And, man, that's such a tough one because, any given day, I know that's kind of cliche, but it's which team are we going to get on each side of the ball there?
Spit it out. DeCamp, who is it?
Should I reveal it when people are waiting until Thursday for my picks or not?
That's true.
Oh, I think you make your picks right
We
now.
have to.
Gosh, you're putting me in a corner.
I know.
I guess.
It's subject to change, right? That's kind of me too. There's going to be.
Yeah, it's subject to change. I guess right now I'll give the edge to Whitehall and be a homer just with Zach's influence.
Just for the record, Scott's daughter and kids go to Whitehall. So
I also paid him a little bit of money.
So everybody's going to think that Brent wearing blue, Wildcat grad. I'll say a couple things about Whitehall. For me, they're by far the most talented team in the West Michigan Conference. And hopefully my Montague homeboys don't kill me for saying that. But really, top to bottom overall, they have a ton of weapons. They have a ton of good players. The thing with Whitehall, and this is where Tony's probably going to catch me in the sidewalk or something later on, they tend to dip sometimes. And I that's what I'm always concerned with them. In my mind, they should beat Sparta solidly, right? Going back, everybody's a little you're a little gun shy. Like last year, I thought that they were going to make a run. I had them in at least the quarters, right? They just didn't come out. So I think if we don't get the bipolar Whitehall, we get the Whitehall that they could be. I think that this is an easy win for them. I'm definitely taking them in this game. I think they're going to be motivated. They just have to keep motivated, and they're going to have to play discipline. Zach, you talked a little bit about playing against the T. We talked to Tim Stout a little bit about that, and Tim refed, I think, the JV game.
Yep.
And what you have to be against the T is discipline, right? And Tim talked a lot about that. You have to play, assignment football. I think that could be a factor as we go on. It might not be a factor in Sparta, but unlike Muskegon to me seems locked in. They seem like they're going to do what Shane needs them to do. I'm not 100% sold, and I know I'm going to see somebody in the grocery store and they're going to give it to me. But
right.
But yeah, so I got Whitehall, but I definitely could see Sparta winning this game too if the wrong Whitehall shows up.
In all honesty, I think you said it better than I could have, because those are a lot of my thoughts too. Last year, for instance, now Forest Hills Eastern's not a bad team at all. And so I wouldn't call it a bad loss, but I guess I was surprised the manner in which it happened. They kind of got away from Whitehall, and it wasn't a great game for them. I really did see Whitehall last year as being a team that could have made a pretty deep run.
Yeah.
And, certainly going up to Cadillac, I kind of was mapping it out in my head. I'm like, well, they should beat Forest Hills Eastern, then they'll go play Cadillac.
Yep.
I think they can get them. And then they would face Edwardsburg, and then maybe that's the end of the road. Edwardsburg's really good, but you never know. And, of course, the way it played out, Forest Hills Eastern beats Whitehall. Forest Hills Eastern goes up to Cadillac, loses. Cadillac goes down and pulls probably the upset of the playoffs, knocking off Edwardsburg. Yeah. No one saw that coming. And so I'm thinking, looking back on the season, I'm like, well, Whitehall really wasn't that far away when you think about it.
Yeah, no, and I don't think they're going to run into some buzzsaws, I think, pretty quick in the tournament this year. They got the talent. It's there. It's just a matter of, again, it's what we talk about at work, right? The little things, the discipline, the accountability, all of that stuff. I know, Zach, you talked a little bit about some of the personal foul penalties up at Reed City, and I know that went both ways, but that's the stuff that'll lose you a playoff game against good teams. So I'm rooting for them, believe it or not. I would love to see Montague, Whitehall, all the Muskegon teams go deep.
I agree.
Whitehall's probably the one that I'm the least sure of who to pick, and I'm the least confident if you had to give a confident score, right? So, yeah.
Well, we'll see. Like we said,
for sure.
We're gonna see what team what team shows up on Friday. That's really what it's gonna come down to, in my opinion.
Yep. But I do have Whitehall, just for the record. So.
Moving on to Fruitport at Cadillac. Fruitport 4-5. Again, is visiting Cadillac, who is 7-2, also on Friday at 7 p.m. Now, Fruitport is 4-5, but they play in the OK Blue, and I tell you what, there's some decent teams in there, specifically this year. So I think that they have every bit of a chance. I'm not going to disclose my pick yet, but I'd like to hand it over to Scott here.
Oh, so you're gonna make me make my pick now?
No, you can make it at the end.
All right. Well, no, it's a rematch of week 2. Cadillac came down to Fruitport 128-12. Obviously, a tough task for Fruitport. I do like the Trojan skill players. They've got Gavin Reams at quarterback. They've got Pascal Jolman, the running back, and they've got the receivers with Farrell and Nash. So they've definitely got the playmakers. I think up front is where it's a taller order for them, and that's where they maybe run into some more problems, especially in the OK Blue, facing the likes of Unity Christian, Spring Lake, West Catholic, Coopersville. That's a really good league this year. But credit to Fruitport too, and I believe they're the only 4-5 team that got into the Division IV playoff. So credit for them for just getting into the show, but that's going to be a tough task going up there and playing them again.
Yeah, I from the highlights I saw, I haven't watched a full Fruitport game yet this year, but from what I've seen, I think they play hard. I think they're well coached. I like Nate. I like what he's doing at Fruitport. I like what he's doing with the culture there. This just happens to be. This is tough sledding. I mean, this is like, again, anybody that met up with Mona Shores or Montague last year, especially Montague. I mean, Montague rolled, right? Cadillac's pretty good. And I think they just got a bad draw at the beginning and kind of thing. Or maybe not a bad draw, but like the draw that they got. I could see them pulling it out. I mean, it'd have to be, in my mind, like an Edwardsburg kind of thing where, kind of what you were talking about last year, Scott, with was it Cadillac and Edwardsburg, but I think they're going to get beat. I don't have Fruitport in this one. So.
Which Cadillac, by the way, they have wins over Reed City, which I mentioned earlier, but they also beat Portland 10-7, which Portland, for those who don't know, beat DeWitt, which was thought to be a juggernaut and still kind of is one of the favorites in Division III. But so they've got some nice wins now. Their 2 losses are to Traverse City Central and Traverse City West. So those are bigger schools. Traverse City West is Division I, Traverse City Central is Division II. So not bad losses by any means.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I honestly think it's going to be a close one. I am going to give a pick, but it's one of those that's subject to change because I just don't know. Especially after looking through their opponents. Yeah. The win against Reed City was early, right? But then they beat Portland later on.
Yeah, Portland's a pretty good team, though. I mean,
that's what I mean. Like that says a lot, but I just, a lot of Fruitport's losses were close. They got beat by.
So you taking them? Spit it out.
No, I don't know. I got Cadillac.
There
but I
he
think
goes.
it's gonna be close. Nail biter.
You too, Scott?
I'm going Cadillac. Yeah.
You going with the Caddies?
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Another close one. Spring Lake at Grand Rapids Christian. Both teams are 6-3. That's on Friday as well. I have Grand Rapids Christian in this one. I think that they're going to have that edge. But I do think it's going to be close. Honestly, in that region, there's a lot of really good teams.
There are. It's going to be a tough one. Yeah.
That's loaded. That region is really absolutely loaded.
It really is. A couple highlights on the season. Or lowlights, if you will. They squeak one out against Lowell. So hard to tell because Lowell's down. When you match them up with other schools in their division. But
you're talking about Christian, right? Yeah.
That's correct. Yep. I'm talking about Christian. Yep.
That jumps out at me.
Byron Center.
Yeah.
That's a big win. I think, in my opinion.
They've played a tough schedule. I'm looking at it right now, and
East Grand Rapids.
They lost their first 2 games. They lost to South Christian, which is a good team.
Unity Christian.
Lost to Unity, which is a very good team. Played East Grand Rapids, which was down for East Grand Rapids, but still, it's East Grand Rapids. Yep. Then the one that also jumps out at me is they lost to Forest Hill Central, but it was a 35-28 game, so they were there.
Yeah.
Right.
So they were right there with them, and man.
Well, to make it worse too, Spring Lake also played Unity Christian, and the scores were almost identical. So you can't even look at common opponents and be like, hey, Spring Lake did better against them, so I'm gonna I don't know. I'm gonna homer at this one. I think I'm the Spring Lake. Yeah. And again, I would say I feel like this about the same way I felt about Whitehall Sparta. Now, actually, I'm less sure on this one than I am Whitehall Sparta.
I like Spring Lake a lot going into the season because I knew they had like a really experienced group, a lot of seniors. But they've been just beaten down by injuries, including in the running back, mostly in the running back spot. I think they're maybe to their third or fourth string guy now.
Yeah.
So that's just devastating to overcome. I mean, it's kind of a mid-sized school, Division IV, but you still might not have the depth that you might have in some other schools, some
Right.
bigger schools. So that's just a lot to overcome. I mean, like you said, just if you look at comparing scores, which usually doesn't work when you're trying to figure it out. I've tried that before. Trust me, it doesn't work. But I think I like Grand Rapids Christian in this one. I do like that Spring Lake team, but I just wonder, do they have enough horsepower left to do it?
Yeah. And that season takes a toll, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, that it does.
It really
North
does.
Muskegon would tell you that.
And
but-
exactly to your point, they lost to Allendale last week.
Yeah.
You know? Like Fruitport being Allendale, I just think that says a little bit about
Where
the
they're
direction
at.
that they're at, the direction that they're headed. I think
Sure.
that obviously that can be attributed to the injuries that they've experienced, but I got to take Grand Rapids Christian in this one.
Ooh, so we're different a little bit, huh? That'll be an interesting one. What's next, Zach? What do we
Moving
got?
on to Division 5. We have Big Rapids at Oak Ridge. Big Rapids is 5-4. Oak Ridge is 7-2, and that's on 7 p.m. or at 7 p.m. on Friday as well. Man, I'm gonna have to go with Oak Ridge in this one. I think that a tri-champion in the West Michigan Conference. I've seen Oak Ridge play a couple times this year. Just a good, disciplined team. They fell last week to a pretty solid Muskegon Catholic team, but just solid. They have a running back. Vanderput's back this year. I just think that they have the edge for sure. Scott?
I think Oak Ridge might be petitioning to join the CSA Gold because their whole division or this whole district is all CSA Gold.
Yeah.
Last year, if you look at their playoff run, Oak Ridge, here's who they beat on the road to making it to the regionals: Chippewa Hills, which is CSA Gold; Big Rapids, CSA Gold; Tri-County, CSA Gold, and then they ran into Grand Rapids Catholic. So,
Yeah.
which they probably. And they lost Grand Rapids Catholic 58-7. Grand Rapids Catholic is just a juggernaut. And they're probably thinking during that game, can we play another gold team instead?
Right.
Yeah,
These
no
guys.
kidding.
So they've had their success against those gold teams, and you got to like their chances this week, and then obviously going into next week as well, because they'd face the winner of Grant and Tri-County. So
Yeah. So you got Oak Ridge, Scott?
I got Oak Ridge, yep.
Yeah, I think, the only game that was lopsided for them was the Montague game. And I was at that game. They came out flat. I really expected that to be a much better game. Every other game they've had, they've taken care of business. They beat a talented Whitehall team at Whitehall. Probably one of the more impressive start-to-finish games that I've seen from a West Michigan Conference team. They really, Whitehall came back on them a little bit, and they just stepped it down and kind of finished. They should have had Catholic. They really should have.
Yeah.
They're a little bit, I think, this year, a little bit like Whitehall in a sense, too. Like, when they're good, I think they're really good, right? And when they're not good, like, there's no middle of the road, I think, sometimes with them. That Ravenna game that they played went way deeper than it probably should have. Credit Ravenna for playing tough, and they're a team that I think are a little bit of a sleeper in the playoffs, honestly. But, yeah, I got Oak Ridge. I got the Eagles in this one. I think they'll win this one pretty easily.
Yeah, and I covered Oak Ridge last week. It was our game of the week against Catholic, and I'm standing there on the sideline, and I picked Catholic 28-27, and I'm thinking, this isn't even going to be close.
Right.
Oak Ridge looked really good.
Yeah.
They threw a sweet halfback pass right before halftime to put them in front, 21-16 at the time, and then they scored again on their first possession of the second half. I'm like, wow, they might just run away with this. And then as things have tended to do on them, it kind of gets away with them.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have the laps or what they do, but they just have that stretch where they just maybe 2 and out or something happens.
Yeah, it happened a little in the Whitehall game too. They for probably 2.5 quarters, they really were the dominant team. I think there was a fumble I thought Whitehall scored on, but really it was their game to kind of lose at that point. And now they did settle down and end up finishing that game. But yeah, that's very similar. If they show up, they're a good team. Mm-hmm. But like you said, it's not even show up the whole game. You got to be there the whole game, especially playoff time. They're all good teams in the playoffs, right? So yeah, I got Oak Ridge.
In Cal Van Sinkle, again, referencing him again, but he on our show, First and 10 show, he calls him Jekyll and Hyde. He's called him that for several weeks now, and Calvin Single is the biggest Oak Ridge homer you're ever going to meet.
Cal is?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
In fact, we're thinking about changing his last name to Calvan Sugars.
I did not know that.
So
really?
we're thinking about that. Yeah.
I have not seen that side of him because he called a couple basketball games for us where the Wildcats took down Oak Ridge last year, and I didn't see it. He hit it pretty well. I didn't realize.
He's just good at hiding.
I thought Cal was a Newaygo guy, kind of that.
Well,
area.
he's got that background, the Newaygo County, because he's a Grant guy.
Yeah, Grant. That's right, Grant.
That big farm up in Grant, but yeah, he likes him some Oak Ridge, but he's got a good relationship with Jack Sugars, and that goes back a long ways. And so but anyhow, back on track here. Oak Ridge, I like him a lot. And I think even with some of the deficiencies, I still like him in this district.
Yeah, I do too. I definitely do. I don't think this would be the end of their run if they do, win on Friday either. I think I can see them making a little run. Okay, moving on to Grant at Howard City Tri-County. This is kind of an interesting matchup. Grant 4-5, getting into the playoffs at 4-5, and then Tri-County at 8-1. Now I don't think Tri-County's 8-1 is. The 8-1 that you would normally.
It's not a West Michigan Conference 8-1
it certainly is not. But they did. It was early in the season, but they did have a game against Reed City that was close. They ended up losing it. That was their only loss of the year. But I think it was 18-14 or.
Yeah, but 18-12. Looking at it right now. Yep.
It was close.
Right there.
So, and that says a lot. Like I said, I watched Reed City play last week, and I think they're a pretty solid football team.
Yeah, a lot of history in that program too. They're usually pretty good, Reed City. So
they sure are. So I'm gonna have to go with Howard City Tri-County on this one.
I'm with you on that one too.
For sure.
Yep.
Okay, I'm disappointed because you just told me in the office a couple minutes ago you're going with Grant. I'm trying to make up ground.
He's
in
messing
our
with
pace
you,
here.
Scott. He's messing with
Scott.
you.
I'm trying to win.
Come on.
He's got integrity. He's gonna pick who he picks.
We're talking about winning now. Okay. I'm gonna actually try to get the picks right now. Then
Scott.
What?
Who's the leader? Who's our pick leader?
That lead's dwindling a little bit, man.
It is, but it's.
Why do you think I asked you ahead of time what your picks are?
If you win a race, does it matter how much you win a race by?
It doesn't.
All right, that's
if you're not first, you're last.
That's right.
And I'm slow as can be, so I'm never winning any race. So.
You might.
Yeah.
I had a horrible week last week.
But Tri-County, coached by Phil Butler, the former Tri-County star, went on to Hope and was a really good quarterback there. He's come back to Tri-County and done a great job getting that program back. And they also have a rich history going back years with Coach Gooden, who's now kind of affiliated or living in Newaygo. But
Zach, do you feel like it's such a disadvantage talking about this stuff when Scott's pulling stuff from like 1989 that he just got buried in the memory banks and he's like
staring at a black computer screen?
Yeah, he knows it all. It's all for show. He just knows it all. And
I think
I'm like,
it just shows how old I am.
Yeah.
Besides looking at me, you can tell. But
your brain power is insane.
But it's Tri-County and Grant, and I didn't know this, but again, you're gonna think that Cal's paying me to keep saying his name.
Oh Lord!
But he's the one that pointed out to me that Cal and Tri-County actually have Cal and Tri-County. Look, I got Cal in the brain. He's in my head now.
God.
Grant and Tri-County actually are pretty good rivals. I didn't know that. I always just thought Grant and Newaygo.
Yeah.
But I heard it can get kind of nasty between Grant and Tri-County. Grant, to their credit, they have a new coach this year, Mike Steffen. He's also their AD. He came into kind of a tough situation. He wasn't hired until maybe early summer. And so by that time, they didn't have any 7-on-7s lined up. They didn't have anything in place. So he came in. They didn't do any of that stuff. They just kind of picked up and did what they could. Didn't even play in a preseason scrimmage. And to their credit, they've battled. They got blown out a couple times, but they battled in a lot of games, and they beat Kent City last week, which was essentially a play-in game. The winner was going to get in, and the loser wasn't going to get in. They got in.
But Matt Parker was happy about that one.
Oh, yeah.
Some Ravenna fans were happy about that one.
Yeah. Matt Parker doesn't hold on to things like that.
No, never. Never. So,
but yeah, I do like Tri-County in this game. Notwithstanding the 40-14 game that it was earlier, I just think Tri-County's a more complete team. Grant scraps, but I still like Tri-County in this one.
Yep, I do too.
Yeah, I think Tri-County.
Hands down.
Yeah. I don't think it's a game.
I think we're all in agreement there, that's for sure. Moving on to Division 6. We have Central Montcalm at Montague at 7 p.m. on Friday. Central Montcalm's 5-4, and Montague stands at 6-3 with some tough losses, I would say, for at least from Montague's perspective. I'm definitely taking Montague in this one. I think that the competition that they've played this year, including their conference battles against Oak Ridge and Whitehall, Ravenna, and then the Edwardsburg loss.
Three losses
in the at the beginning of the season. Hands down, I'm giving it to Montague for sure.
That's a nasty schedule for a Division 6 team,
Nasty.
but that's what they play. I mean, that's what they want, and it pays off more often than not. And that's why I like them. Health permitting, if they're relatively healthy, I like them to make a little bit of a run here. Of course, they shouldn't have any problem this week. I mean, Central Montcalm got blasted by Ravenna last week. Not that that's bad, but it just shows that Central Montcalm doesn't play the schedule that like a Montague or Ravenna or whatever does. So I like Montague to roll in this one. And then you're looking at Reed City next week, which, Reed City took down Whitehall last week, but I don't know. Montague in these playoff games, and I know they're under a new coach, but they know how to perform in these games. That's what I like about Montague.
Yeah,
Yep,
no,
I agree.
I'm the U all the way. I think they're going to put a running clock on Central Montcalm.
Yeah.
Next week's going to worry me a little bit. I think I've said this about a lot of the West Michigan Conference teams. Like, if Montague that played Oak Ridge shows up, we could easily beat Reed City. I think if Montague that played maybe Whitehall or even Ravenna, that Ravenna game I thought was going to be a bit of a separator. That came that was way closer than it should have been. I think if that Montague shows up, again, not this week, but next week could be a tough sledding for them. Like you said, Zach, I mean, the schedule they've played. I mean, they've lost to Division 4 ranked Edwardsburg. They've lost to Division 4 ranked Whitehall. They've lost to Portland. I'm not sure if they're division ranked in. They're 5, right?
5, yeah. They're right in the middle of those Division 5 rankings.
Right.
That's
So geez, Pete, like for a Division 6 team, those are your 3 losses, and again, most of them were lopsided. I mean, Edwardsburg right off the bat. I mean, they're a good team, right? But yeah, I got the U all the way.
Yep. All in agreement there. Moving on to Division 7. 2 West Michigan Conference teams. North Muskegon at Ravenna.
Oh, man.
At 7 p.m. on Friday. North Muskegon's kicking it off at a 4-5 regular season record, and Ravenna is 6-3. Hands down, we've talked about this a lot this year. I think that hands down Ravenna has this one in the bag.
Yeah, they won.
I wouldn't have said that earlier in the season, but Ravenna's just kind of proven to me that they have what it takes.
Yep.
I really like Beebe. I think he's a talented
I do too.
Wait, do you like Brian Beebe?
No,
not Brian Beebe.
Oh, sorry.
Not that guy.
Kyle.
No relation, by the way.
It's a shame that they have the same last
crazy,
name.
'cause
What's
both
crazy? You know what's crazier? Kyle Beebe's dad's name is Brian Beebe,
That is.
and there's no relation.
And they're both from Ravenna, right?
Well, I don't know if Kyle Beebe's dad Brian is from Ravenna, if he grew up there or whatever. But the other Brian Beebe,
We've said
Whitehall.
Beebe way too many times right
the
now.
other Brian Beebe, the Whitehall AD, is from Ravenna. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's who.
That's what just makes it so odd.
That is. That's why.
It's not like Ravenna's a big place, and everyone there's related, right? So.
Yeah.
True. This guy would know.
Yeah.
Scott would know. That's his.
Scott, you like the
from?
Bulldogs in this one?
I do, but I don't think it's a slam dunk like everyone thinks it is. Now, I will say, though, that North Muskegon's hurting in terms of they lost their starting quarterback, James Young, to a collarbone. They think he'll be back for basketball, which is great.
That'd be great. He's a great basketball player, yeah.
And then they lost their stud running back, Denny Belmonte, to a shoulder. Sounds like he's done for football. He could be back for basketball as well. And then they got their third-string quarterback, Ben Myers, is a really good athlete. He's like an all-state level catcher, and he did well last week, filling in that quarterback spot. Led them to a shutout victory over Ludington, which Ludington, they play obviously. Whitehall pounded Ludington, but Ludington played Belding to overtime, and Belding's not a bad team.
Yeah.
So that was a nice win for North Muskegon, and they needed that to get in. And now they're going over to Ravenna. That's our game of the week.
Yep.
Spit it out, DeCamp. Who you got?
Oh, am I allowed to chime in on this? Because
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, I'll probably still go with Ravenna. I think they're a little deeper.
Yes.
But at the same time, because they're a little short-handed too. They've got a couple injuries too. They've got one of their tackles, I believe, hurt his knee, and then one of the Shulo kid, the big kid, who's a sophomore but looks like he's much older than that. I think he didn't suit up last week. I'm not sure what's going on there, but so this time of year teams are going to be banged up. You're going to have kids out, but I still like Ravenna in this one.
Yeah, Ravenna for me too. And it's only because North Muskegon's banged up. I think Ravenna's hurt players impact them a lot less than North Muskegon's. I think that a lot of these smaller schools, injury could get them. I mean, and again, especially this time of year. I mean, Montague's got a couple key players out. You know, you start getting some of these smaller schools. You don't have as deep a bench to go to, right? So, North Muskegon missing Young and Belmonte. I know they're a tough team. I know they play hard, but I think Ravenna. I like Ravenna in this. I like BB. I think it's probably a 2-score Ravenna victory.
Yep.
So
I'm with you.
Yep.
I'm with you. Also, Division 7 matchup. We have Delton Kellogg visiting Muskegon Catholic Central. Kellogg's 5-3, and Catholic Central is 8-1. That's also going to be on Friday at 7. Catholic's coming off of two clutch victories, right? Clutch fourth quarter victories.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't at the game. You covered the game, but I was looking at some of the video, and those kids just seem confident. The interviews after the game, they just seem like they are right where they need to be. Right?
Yeah, they didn't look like worried at all, right?
No, and I think that I heard Zerwan talking to the team afterward, and he's talking about how if they can believe they can beat somebody, they pretty much can, right? They got to have that confidence, and they do. I think that no question, Catholic Central over Kellogg.
Yeah, that's that belief that's embedded in their program. I mean, they've been doing this for years, and one of the top programs. I mean, truly elite programs in the state. When you look through history, I like Catholic to roll in this one. Delton Kellogg just doesn't see the competition that Catholic has and does. It's just a different. I work down in Kalamazoo area, and while Delton's not right in the heart of Kalamazoo, they played a lot of Kalamazoo area teams, and they played Constantine, which that's a really good program and a really good team this year in Division 6. But by and large, they don't see the schedule that Catholic does. I like Muskegon Catholic, and then that sets up what could be a really fun matchup next week. If we'll see who comes out in North Muskegon or Ravenna, but they will be going over to Catholic.
That'll be good.
That'll be fun.
Could be the game of the week. You never know.
Could be. We'll see. We'll see. And
Catholic the whole way. History, desire. I think they're a good team. They schedule tough. They play tough teams. I mean, what's their loss? Loss is West Catholic, right, this year?
Yeah.
A single loss. And
they held that Kloska. They got that stud running back at West Catholic, Tim Kloska. I think they held him down as well as anyone has this year.
Yeah, I'm a Catholic all the way for me.
Yeah. Yep. Division 8. Holton visits Muskegon Heights on Saturday at 1 p.m. The Red Devils are 5-4, and the Tigers are 5-4 as well. This is one of those close matchups for me. I'm not sold either way. Definitely subject to an adjustment, I would say. I looked a little bit, before we started here at some of their matchups, and I'm gonna have to go with Muskegon Heights on this one. Although I don't, it wouldn't shock me if Holton came out on top. I think that, just the CSAA teams in general, they're just a little bit. They don't play the up to the.
Trying to say they're soft, Zach?
A little bit.
Can I quote you on that?
Not,
Zach said the CSAA is soft.
The competition's a little dumb. That's what I would.
Good job. Good recovery.
Good recovery. You did good. It was good
Pass
job.
that test.
I would have to go with Muskegon Heights for sure.
All right.
See, this is what. Brent, you're going to be ashamed of me here because I didn't do my homework on this part.
You don't have to. That's the worst part. Zach and I are over here researching for 2 hours to just keep up, and you're like, you got it all.
I know enough about these teams this year, but I was just informed earlier, or at least someone brought this point up to me, that this is Muskegon Heights' first ever home playoff game, which I just can't believe that to be true.
That's crazy to believe, yeah.
I still am not believing. I still need to see documentation or verification on that because but what was brought up to me, because when Willie Sneed, when he played at Heights, Van Parker, who's the coach now, he played with Willie Sneed back in 09 or 10 or whatever, and I guess when they had home games, they moved him to Grand Haven to be on turf because maybe the field was sloppy.
That's probably a good idea, though.
So maybe they haven't played a home playoff game, but man, they were good in the 80s and 90s. They had some really good teams, but anyhow, I think it's great for the community of Muskegon Heights
Yep.
to have a good football team and to have one that people, and have a home playoff game now that also coincides. It's the exact same time of the Michigan State game. So
Oh no.
how many people are actually going to want to go to this game, or would they rather just stay home or whatever, go to the Michigan State game? I don't know, but I kind of like Heights in this. I'll give them a slight edge, although credit Holton under first-year coach Alex Smith. After they lost to Hart in the opener, and with it might be a long season, but they kind of got it back
Bounced
on track,
back.
and he got them in the playoffs. So
Yeah.
credit to them.
The only common opponent, I believe, is Lee, which they forfeited both of them, so we don't even get a score out
They
of
both
that.
had 2-0 wins.
Both had 2-0 wins. So this is a toss-up for me too. I think these teams are pretty well matched. I'm going to say Muskegon Heights because that's who I'd like to see win. Not just it's a good story. I like the fact that the program's going in the right direction. So I'm going to take Muskegon Heights. Not that I don't like Holton. I just because it's a better story.
I will say this about Holton because I saw it when they got to the semifinals a couple years ago. They made that magical run. That community shows out when
They do.
When they have a team that's going well. I mean, it was almost like each week it was almost like a movie. Like you'd have they charter a bus, go down to Decatur, pull out a win they weren't supposed to get, come back home, and then the streets are lined with people and cars honking and stuff. They had that kind of welcome home every week. Basically.
Yeah, no, it's
It's really cool to see, and so when Holton has it rolling, it's fun.
Some of those small town communities, man. So that's the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Super cool. Okay, moving on. The last team in Division 8, and the last team the last matchup we're going to talk about rather, is White Cloud at Carson City Crystal. White Cloud's 4-5. Carson City is 8-1. This one's going to be at 7 p.m. on Friday. Again, back to the CSAA. This conversation.
Man, we're going to come out of this podcast and it's going to be Zach Zweigle hates the CSAA.
Yeah.
I'm going to spin
I definitely
this.
do not hate the CSAA. I just think that
That's not what I heard.
I think that interpret it how you will. I think that Carson City definitely played some some better teams this year. Muskegon Heights is notable in their in their schedule. They ended up beating them pretty handedly, and I'm just gonna have to go with them. I'm gonna have to go with them for sure.
I'm going to make a mental note here, and I think as soon as possible we need to start assigning Zach some CSAA games. So we can go to these gyms in front of these
Gets
ADs
booed.
and people and just get booed. That would be so awesome. Wouldn't it?
You guys are so mean.
Zach Zweigle, Whitehall Homer, hates the CSAA. I love it.
I like in this one I like Carson City quite easily. I mean,
Why do you like Carson City, Scott?
it's not because I hate the CSAA like you.
I don't hate the CSAA. I just don't think the teams in the CSAA Silver are very good.
No, but I like Carson City. They're just in a better spot as a program. Tim Swore used to be the coach at North Point Christian, which Montague has faced before, which Urbana has
I was
faced.
at that game.
He had some great teams.
Great
and
teams, yeah.
Montague had great teams as well then. But he's done a good job at Carson City taking that over. And White Cloud, give him credit for getting in the playoffs. I mean, still, you got Joe Gorman in his second year there as the coach, and that program's been struggling for a long time. They got in the playoffs last year because everybody did. But this year they got in on their own volition, so credit to them for getting in. And, I think they're facing a tall order this week, but, good by them for getting back in.
Yeah, I don't have White Cloud in this one either. I like you said, it's hard to root against them. I'm not going to be. I hope they win. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think they have the horsepower to pull this one out. So.
Yep. I totally agree.
Just
that kind of wraps up.
Well, just to validate your CSAA theories, Zach, that you have. I mean, Hart is not one of the better teams in the West Michigan Conference, and they kind of put it to White Cloud earlier in the season. I mean,
Holton.
And Holton.
And Kent City,
Yep.
right?
And Kent City.
Yeah. So I mean.
And Kent City that game ended up 30-22 if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
that was a good game.
And
it was 30-6 though.
Right.
Yeah, Hart's a good team too. Like they suffer from being, if they're in the CSAA, they might be the conference champs. I think that's what Zweigel would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
But being in the West Michigan Conference, you get a tall task. Right?
I just think the CSAA is down. Is down a little bit this year. I think that's pretty.
He's backpedaling, Scott.
That's pretty.
Did you play defensive back in high school?
Oh my gosh.
All right, Zach.
You guys are stressing me
Take
out.
us out of this conversation. We'll get into something else. so.
Okay. Very, very quickly, we are going to discuss the playoff selection process and how it's different from last year because of COVID. They decided to let every team in, and where we are now, or where we're back to rather, where it's a selection process based on playoff points that we accumulate. Scott, can you talk a little bit about how they assign points to each team?
Yeah, it's similar to the old way. The old way was you get X amount of points for beating a Class A, B, C, or D school, and then you get what's called bonus points, where you get like 8 or whatever the scale is now. X amount of points for beating so let's say I'll use an example. It might be easier to do it this way. So Whitehall beat Montague, and so Montague finished with their class. What are you smiling for?
It's funny that you use that example. I feel like you're trying to get a rise out of Brent.
Well, I got both sides
rubbing
here.
salt in the wound.
I'm just trying to kind of pit you guys against each other. Really.
I know. I'm not used to seeing that dinging thing on the other side of the river. It's
There's
like
enough space between
it's
you.
tough. It's tough, man. Like
basically, so Whitehall beats, and I believe, I don't know if Montague would be considered a Class B or C, but you get X amount of points for that, and then Montague's 6-3, so they get, and because Whitehall beat them, they get all these bonus points for each of those victories that Montague got.
Gotcha.
But now they've sweetened the pot, if you will. Like if you play a good team and you lose to them, you get more bonus points just because you played them. Even if you lose to them, you get bonus points.
So Scott, does that mean you could potentially lose and get more points than win and get more points?
That's correct, and that happened.
Yeah, that's dumb.
That happened like last week. I think it was De La Salle and maybe who are they playing this week? Who was the team they had again? You had it in your bracket. UD Jesuit. I think they might have played them. I think UD Jesuit jumped up, like they were
That's dumb.
not even close to the playoffs, and they jumped up into the playoffs after getting pounded.
I mean, I like the idea of playing difficult and encouraging playing difficult teams, but I mean, come on, win's a win. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think, yeah.
Yeah, that's tough because there's quite a few teams, a handful, that didn't make it, that were 6-3.
Right.
Like I think Oscoda is one of them that I was reading about over
Yeah.
on the other side of the state. Their
Winning
coaches,
record.
they're 6-3, and they're like, and their kids are crying because we won 6 games, and I know that's not the format anymore, but you figure 6-3, that's a pretty good season.
Yeah.
So points aside, why not let everybody in? I mean, it worked last year. Like,
I'm not against it. I'd be in favor of it.
I think that it's something to consider. The bottom line is, I think with both styles of organizing the brackets, I think that there's weaknesses, right? I think that that's true.
What's the weakness of letting everybody in?
Letting everybody in allows team. It just takes more time, right? Like you're allowing every single team to play, and you're adding weeks onto the season, more or less.
You'd have to knock off week 9 maybe
Right.
in the regular season to do it.
Yeah, so you could do it without.
I mean, yeah,
you don't. So Montague doesn't play Portland when they end their season with the Bell game, Whitehall, right? Like, I mean,
I also feel like a lot of conferences are structured around like that schedule though too, like their matchups and trying to make sure that they get the.
Yeah, but doesn't I mean so the only drawback, I mean, that from what you're saying from your side is like that they add extra week and then maybe the conference. I think the reason the schedules are the way they are is because teams are searching to get the points, and the playoff point system is convoluted. It's complex. There's nothing about it that screams easy. You know what I mean? Like, and again, college football playoffs is a good example of this. Like, I think if you ask any college football fan, open it up. Let's play. The only people that don't want that stuff to happen are the people that have something else to gain from it. My
the
opinion.
big boys.
Yeah,
They don't want to see that because
they don't want to see that. They don't want Boise State coming in and knocking me off in the first round, right? Like, so. But I mean, for the kids, I think you let everybody in. I don't think it's that big a deal.
What do you think about the incentive to increase like better matchups?
Well,
I
think
that
it
kind of goes away if you let everybody in.
So let's
for some schools.
Yeah, let's go through a scenario right now. So I'm Edwardsburg. Montague wants to play me. I don't know why they play Montague. Why would you come to Montague and play? Division 6 powerhouse, right? Like, this isn't a home we're talking. They've been great in Division 6 for years. Good team. The team they saw last year at Montague was, I think, better than this year's team. That's a real risk for Edwardsburg. There's no bonus points. There's no reason to play them. Like, why? So
To get better. Ideally to get
To
better.
get better, but
yeah,
that's why-
Montague does, but why would Edwardsburg come to Montague to play? There is no incentive for them to come here in the playoff point
To
system.
honor a 2-year contract.
But
Well, that
that's the
happened.
only thing, right? And so the Division 6 teams, why would a Division 6 team want to play Montague? They don't. They're going to lose. There's no incentive. So in my mind, it actually decreases. It causes many more lopsided matchups, and it decreases the likelihood that you are going to face a great team. Why does Reed City want to play Montague in a season where maybe they're on the borderline of playoff points? They don't. Montague doesn't want to play Reed City. There's no advantage to it. You know what I mean? Why are the conference realignments happening in the West Michigan Conference? It's all around playoff points in my mind, right? Like Whitehall can't play enough playoff point teams in the West Michigan Conference.
When they have to play these
And they have to play these games to make the playoffs. I mean, you look at Whitehall this year, great team. They were coming down to the end of the season, and they lose to Montague. They don't make the playoffs.
Right.
As a 2-loss team, they don't make the playoffs in Division 4. Okay, so they're that much worse one week to the other because they
Yeah.
I just think you can go schedule great teams if there's no playoff points in it. Like, who cares if I lose to Whitehall, or who cares if Edwardsburg loses to Montague week 1? They just want to play great football. You know, the point that everybody's in, we throw that all out of the mix, and it just, to me, it's just a way better format. I don't know.
Small school powers like Catholic, Muskegon Catholic, and Mendon have faced that for years. No one wants to play them because
Right.
basically they're the smallest of the small schools, or they have been. Catholic used to be big and got small, but no one wants to play them because if you're a bigger school, you have nothing to gain at all, and you could lose to them.
Right.
So then you got egg on your face if you do lose to them.
Yeah.
And it's no shame in losing to a program like that, but they might think it is because it's a small school.
Well, and I don't think they care if the playoff points are out. I mean,
Right.
you care, you want to compete, but if you're not going to miss the playoffs because you got beat by Muskegon Catholic, why not play Muskegon Catholic? It's going to prepare you much better for future football. But in this scenario, it's I don't know.
I agree. I think you should. I'm in favor of opening it up. I mean, all the other sports do it.
Yeah. I mean, every other sport does.
I know football is maybe not viewed as every other sport. It's kind of put on a pedestal, fair or not. That's just the way it is. But I don't know. I'd be in favor of opening it up. I think it's a cool thing to have everybody involved in it.
Yeah.
Not to mention think about, and now I realize the NCAA tournament isn't open to everybody, but you think about sleeper teams that get into that and the story and just the following that you get when an underdog goes on and takes and wins, right? I mean, not that not having playoff points is going to create that, but I just feel like let them all compete. It's all fair, and Hart got to play in the playoffs last year. We didn't know if they were going to get back there this year. You know what I mean?
Well, there's proponents of it that say, well, we're not, or opponents, not proponents, but opponents who say, well, there's already blowouts the way it is. There's going to be blowouts no matter what.
Yeah, doesn't
Even
matter.
if you expand it, there'll be blowouts, but there's blowouts now, so what's the difference?
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
opinion.
So are you for it or against it?
No, I'm definitely for opening it up,
Yeah.
allowing everybody in. I was kind of just trying to play devil's advocate.
Yeah, no, it was
But-
good devil's advocate.
But honestly, the only two things that I can think of are that it might not be as much of an incentive to play good teams for some schools, and that there would be blowouts in the situation where kids might get hurt, or it's getting cold and they're playing teams that are a heck of a lot better than other teams are, and so on. That could be the only two things really that I could come up with where it'd be negative.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about Muskegon Catholic. I'm going to go off script here and ask a question. What about parochial schools? Should there be a different playoff system for parochial
Man, we need
schools?
another podcast.
Yeah, right.
We'll hold that off. We'll ask that next time, I guess.
Yeah, it's
then. But
interesting how those schools are just integrated with everybody else, though.
well, yeah. I mean, that's always been a weird one for me too. Like Muskegon Catholic is not they're not a typical school in their division. I mean, this all started for me years and years ago. I think I was 14, and I remember following Montague through in '92 as a sophomore in high school, I believe, to the playoffs, and we watched him beat some great games. Great game at Hausman Field against Penfield. They get to the playoffs. They're playing Detroit DePorres, right? Like DePorres is a parochial school. That parochial school at the time was 500, 400, 500 all boys, right? How is that fair? Like, and again, we might need a whole nother podcast to cover this, but I feel like that's a little bit different. They can recruit. I mean, you look at, I love Cameron Martinez, but he started at Muskegon Catholic, then he goes to Muskegon. There's just some of that. I feel like maybe there should be a parochial division, and there should be if you historically, statistically look back to a lot of parochial schools, a lot of private schools win a lot of sports titles. So.
I will say that being a guy from a small public school, I hear what you're saying. I
Yeah.
do, because Ravenna encountered it for years running in a Muskegon Catholic
Yeah.
class every year. But on the flip side of that, the times when you can actually pull it off and beat them, man, there's nothing better.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is great.
And the
yeah.
reason why is because you want to beat the best.
Right.
You want to say that we beat everybody. There's no one left out there that we didn't beat.
Yeah, but using that argument, we should go away from divisions too then. And everybody
true.
should just play everybody. And there's a reason why divisions are in place. Or, there's a reason why Montague's never going to win a state title against Muskegon. I mean, I don't care. You can take the best Montague team of all time, and they probably won't beat a mediocre Muskegon team. It's just the way that it is. So, again, yeah. I mean, we can save this for another podcast, but I was just curious. Playoff time. It's an interesting thing.
I will argue kind of on that point. Montague, I would say some of their very best teams against maybe some of Muskegon's very mediocre teams. I think it'd be closer than you think.
Maybe.
But I know what you're saying too, because you're talking about Muskegon, you're talking about the depth.
Yeah, but we're talking about
very
the
rare
best
thing.
team of all time. Is
Right.
a Cody Cater-led team,
It's
or
not a
last
usual-
year's
It's not a
Montague.
usual thing.
Yeah, I watched the Montague JV play Muskegon's JV, which, or freshman team, and it was not. I mean, these are kids that are playing on the varsity, right?
Yeah.
So I just think parochial schools. I remember thinking in that game, I'm like, this isn't fair. We only have 200 males to choose from, and watching some of those guys walk out on the field, I mean, there were some monsters. I mean, and we played them tough that year, but it's not. Yeah,
And it was rinse and repeat with DePorce too,
Yeah.
because in '88, Ravenna got to the finals for the first time.
Yep.
Lost to DePorce in a heartbreaker.
92.
Then Oak Ridge got there
Yep.
before Montague did.
Yep.
Lost to DePorce in a heartbreaker. Then Montague got there and lost to DePorce in a heartbreaker. So it happened.
They go on those little streaks too, where they'll have a good recruiting class and they just kind of
Yeah.
take over.
And and it's almost like they were toying with Ravenna, Oak Ridge, and Montague, because it's like Ravenna, those three teams, all right, we got it, we're going to beat them, and then all of a sudden DePorce pulls out a play and they win it.
Yep. Yeah. No. I don't know. I've been hurting on this topic for a long time. So that'd be a good topic of discussion.
Do you feel better now?
I got it out. I don't know if I feel better about it. I'd like equity. Going at it a fair look. Not that I don't like Muskegon Catholic. I love the history there. I love the team. We beat them last year, right? So same division, straight up in the playoffs. But at the same time, if you look at Muskegon Catholic from a school size perspective, maybe that's you have more divisions in football. I don't know. Muskegon Catholic is a much smaller school than Montague. Even how are they competing?
It's changed a lot even since
then.
then.
It has, yeah. I mean, maybe you switch up divisions like you do basketball or something like that. So let everybody. I don't know. We're just on that topic.
And Steve Zerwan, the MCC coach, would counter that by saying, well, what about school choice? Because these schools are getting transfers in. These schools.
There's different rule.
I know.
I believe so. And Steve wants to win. I get it. I'd be arguing against it too.
We're gonna have to save this baby for another.
Yeah, we are.
Another podcast.
It might be a whole topic where we go on.
I think it definitely could be for sure. But that about wraps us up. I think.
Billy's gonna have some work to cut some stuff out of here to get us down to
a little bit longer than we initially.
Oh, I'm
planned,
not cutting anything out. It's all.
Oh Lord. Nobody's gonna watch.
But I think that we're gonna try to keep doing this.
That's good.
Try to get together at least while during the football playoffs, while the playoffs are going on, and talk about these matchups, because there's some interesting ones and a lot of them from our Muskegon area.
Let's hope we have a lot to talk about there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
You gonna wear your CSA T-shirt next time?
Nope. I'm gonna wear my
My-
on the mark champion.
No,
t-shirt.
hey, no, we're carrying this all the way through to Ford Field. You're not done after.
Yeah, well, there's 2 games left, and I'm ahead by 15.
Oh, here we go.
My goal is to get Zach to wear a Wildcat T-shirt at some point this year. I don't believe it.
If you have any extra schmediums, like
Schmediums.
Mediums.
No, I really do hope that all the Muskegon area teams do
Me
well.
too.
I mean, I lived on the east side of the state for a long time, and I loved seeing Muskegon area dominate and come back that way. And we'd go to Ford Field every year and watch them. Really enjoyed watching the Wildcats in there 2 years in a row, and Mona Shores and Muskegon, and it was great. So I hope they all, every single one of them, even Oak Ridge, I hope they make it a long run. So.
It's fun. That's kind of what I grew up around. That's why I like this stuff so much. Is my dad took me to it used to be the Silverdome.
Yeah.
Way back in '86, maybe. I know. You're like, I wasn't even born
Zach
yet.
wasn't even
Yeah,
alive.
right, yeah. That wasn't even a thought, boy.
Oh man.
So, but it's just there's something special about like West Michigan and Muskegon area. Just that feeling. You get multiple teams down there. It's just people here take their football seriously.
They do.
Yeah.
They sure do.
And people, if you're not from the area, you might not quite understand it.
True, I totally agree.
Yeah.
It makes it for an exciting end of fall, though. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
You know,
Tony Sigmund, Gabe Reevy, all you guys, please don't hate me when you see me next time. I'm rooting for you. I really think if the right Whitehall team shows up, they could make a run this year even.
I
so.
wouldn't tick off Gabe Reevy either. I mean, dude, not only is he a big dude, but
At least you
he's
know.
ready to rip that shirt off and fight you.
He is.
Yeah,
He
that's
is.
true. At least you don't have a full conference
Yeah.
having a target.
I haven't alienated an entire region of people. That's true.
Every CSA player and coach is
Oh, my
coming after
gosh.
me, I guess.
Oh, we're gonna lean into that one too, Zach. The whole rest of the time
It's
this
never
goes
gonna
on.
go away. It's
So.
never gonna go away. But without further ado, I think we're gonna wrap her up here.
Good, I'm hungry.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to our CatchMark SportsNet podcast, playoff podcast, and we hope to see you guys next week.
Awesome. See you, everybody.
Thank you.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.